On moving day, my dad's hidden turned into a shocking betrayal. He stole what was rightfully mine. I never thought moving day would turn into the day I lost trust in my own father. I'm 32 now, but this all went down a few years ago when my siblings and I were helping my dad, Jonathan 62 at the time, move out of our childhood home after Mum passed away. She'd left behind not just the house, but also a small inheritance that was supposed to be divided between me, my sister Emily 28, and my brother Mark 35. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to give us each a real start, something Mum had worked hard to save for. Dad had been struggling for years with a drinking problem. We all knew it, but after Mum's passing, it escalated. Empty bottles in the garage, his shaky hands in the mornings, the way he'd disappear for errands and come back smelling like whiskey. We tiptoed around it because we were grieving too. The plan was simple. We'd help him move into a smaller apartment downtown, clean up the house, and then meet with the lawyer to finalise the inheritance distribution. I honestly thought it would be a day of bittersweet memories and maybe even some healing. But instead, it was the day everything blew up. When we arrived that morning, Emily pulled me aside immediately. "Hey John, something feels off," she whispered. "What do you mean?" I asked, balancing a box of kitchen stuff in my arms. She lowered her voice even more. I checked Mum's jewellery box, the one in her dresser, it's empty. My stomach dropped. That jewellery was specifically listed in Mum's will. Her rings, necklaces, even the gold bracelet she wore on every holiday were meant to be divided between us. I rushed upstairs and pulled open the dresser drawer. Sure enough, nothing. Just an empty velvet lining and dust. Mark stormed into the living room where Dad was half packing, half sipping from a coffee mug. "Where's Mum's jewellery?" Mark demanded. Dad blinked, looking way too calm. "What jewellery? You kids must have misplaced it." "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "It was in the will, Dad. It was supposed to come to us." He waved his hand like we were making a big deal out of nothing. "I took it. It's mine. Your mother left everything to me and I can do what I want." That was the first time I felt pure anger toward him. "No, Dad. The lawyer said specifically that the jewellery was to be split between us. Where is it?" He just sipped from his mug and said quietly, "It's gone." Emily's face went pale. "Gone? You mean you sold it?" Dad didn't answer, and that silence said more than words. In that moment, I realised the truth. His addiction wasn't just about drinking anymore. He'd sold our inheritance on Mom's last gift to us to feed whatever hole he was trying to fill. And moving day had only just started. The air in that living room turned so heavy, I swear I could feel it pressing on my chest. Emily sat down on one of the half-packed boxes, her hand shaking, while Mark paced like he was about to punch a hole in the wall. "Hey Dad, you can't just sell Mum's things." Mark finally exploded. "That wasn't yours to take. That was ours, sir. We'll spell it out." Jonathan leaned back on the couch like he was king of the castle. "I raised you. I paid for your food, your college, everything. Don't you dare talk to me like I owe you anything. That jewellery was just junk anyway." "Junk?" Emily whispered, her voice breaking. "That bracelet was her favourite. She wore it when she tucked us in at Christmas. She wore it at my graduation. How could you pawn that?" Dad rolled his eyes, muttering, "You kids are so dramatic." I wanted to scream, but instead I sat down across from him and tried to keep my voice steady. "Dad, listen, this isn't just about money. Mum wanted us to have something of hers, then you stole it. For what? Another bottle? More scratch-offs? What was it this time?" His face twisted, and he slammed the mug down so hard the coffee sloshed out. "Don't you dare accuse me of that," he shouted. But his voice cracked, and for a second I saw something like guilt flicker there. Emily started crying quietly. Mark stopped pacing and leaned on the wall, his fist clenched. "You've hit rock bottom, Dad," he said. "And you're dragging us with you." We spent the rest of the morning trying to keep packing, but every box we carried felt heavier than it was. The whole house was filled with tension like the ghosts of all the family dinners, holidays, and laughs we once had were watching us fight. At one point, I walked into the garage to grab some tools and noticed an envelope sticking out of a shoebox on a shelf. Something told me to check. Inside were pawn shop receipts. Dozens of them. Not just Mum's jewelry, old watches, a vintage camera, even Dad's own wedding ring. My blood went cold. When I confronted him, he snatched the envelope from my hand like a kid caught stealing cookies. "You don't understand," he hissed. "I needed cash, just temporary." "Temporary?" I barked. "This isn't temporary, Dad. You've been pawning everything of value for months. What the hell are you doing with the money?" He didn't answer. Emily stood in the doorway, wiping her eyes, and whispered, "It's the drinking, and probably more. He's not just spending it on alcohol." That hit me harder than anything else. The thought that my father, our rock for so many years, was now burning through our mother's memory to fuel his addiction made me sick. Mark walked up to him, nose to nose, and said, "You're not getting one more dime from us, not one. If you want to keep destroying yourself, fine, but you're not taking us down with you." Dad looked like he wanted to argue, but for the first time that day, he stayed silent. And that silence scared me more than his yelling. By early afternoon, the move had completely stalled. Boxes sat half-packed, the truck still empty. None of us could focus, because every time we looked at Dad, we were reminded that our Mom's last gifts were gone. Emily tried to push through it. "Let's just finish packing, we'll deal with this later." Her voice trembled, but she grabbed a box of books anyway. But I couldn't just let it go. "No, we can't act like this didn't happen. He stole from us, from Mom." Dad snapped. "Stole. I lived in this house with her. I paid the mortgage. That jewellery was mine to do with as I pleased." I couldn't help it. I laughed, but not in a funny way. More like a bitter, broken laugh. "You really believe that, don't you? That Mom's love, her memory, her things, all of it belongs to you to destroy?" That lit the fuse. Mark slammed his hand on the kitchen counter. "You've been lying to us for years, and now we finally see it. Every time you said you were tight on money, every time you asked for a loan, this is what it was for. Booze and God knows what else." Dad's face reddened, his jaw clenched. "Don't talk to me like that. I'm still your father." I shot back, "Then act like it." The silence afterward was deafening. Even the sound of cars outside on the street felt muted, like the whole world was holding its breath. Finally, Dad muttered, "You don't know what it's like, losing her, coming home to an empty bed every night, watching the years slip by with nothing but regret." For a moment, I saw the man I used to know, the dad who taught me to ride a bike, who grilled burgers in the backyard, who danced with Mom in the kitchen. But then he lifted the mug again, and the smell of cheap whiskey hit me in the face, erasing the image. Emily put her hands together like she was praying. "Dad, we're not saying you didn't hurt. We all did, but selling Mom's things, that's not grief, that's addiction." He slammed the mug down again. "Don't use that word with me." "It's the truth," I said quietly. At that point, Mark pulled me aside into the hallway. "We can't keep enabling this," he whispered. "We've been covering for him for years. If we don't put our foot down now, it'll never stop." I nodded, my throat dry. So what do we do? Kick him out of his own house? Mark shook his head. No, but we cut him off. No more money, no more bailing him out. He wants the apartment, fine. But we don't lift another finger until he admits the truth. When we walked back in, Emily was holding Dad's hand, tears streaming down her face. He looked tired, defeated. But the second he saw us, he pulled his hand away, as if we were the enemy. I don't need your help, he said coldly. Not with this house, not with the move, not with anything. And with that, he staggered out the front door, leaving us standing in the ruins of what used to be our home. After Dad walked out, the house felt impossibly empty, like the air itself had been sucked away. Emily sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands, while Mark leaned against the wall, silent. I stared at the doorway, half expecting him to come back, but the street outside was quiet. Too quiet. We tried to finish packing, but every box we touched felt heavier than the last. Every photo we unfolded reminded us of happier times. Every drawer we emptied whispered betrayal. The house wasn't just a building anymore, it was a battlefield, and Dad had weaponized Mom's memory against us. Mark finally broke the silence. We can't keep doing this. We need help, professional help, not just for him, for all of us. What kind? I asked, tension making my hand shake. A lawyer, and maybe an intervention. If he won't admit what he's done, we have to make it official before Mo gets lost. Emily looked up at us, eyes red but determined. I don't care if he hates us. I can't let him get away with stealing Mom's things. I want the receipts, the proof, everything we can find. We can't let him erase a memory like this. I nodded. Agreed, but we need to be careful. He's volatile, he might lash out. We spent the next hour scouring the house, collecting evidence. Pawn shop receipts, missing items, even the old safe in Dad's office, which he'd apparently forgotten to empty. Each find made my blood boil a little more, but also gave me a strange sense of control. At least now we had the upper hand. When we finally sat down to make a plan, Emily spoke. We need to get him to admit it. That's the only way we can move forward. Lawyer, police, whatever it takes. If he refuses, we cut him out, permanently, if necessary. Mark clenched his jaw. Yeah, we can't fix him if he won't admit he's broken, and we can't keep losing to his addiction. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of what we were about to do. It wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about boundaries, respect, and sanity. Dad had been our father for 62 years, but this betrayal meant we had to protect ourselves. Then came the moment when we finally had to face him. He returned in the evening, eyes bloodshot, smelling of whiskey and regret, or maybe just alcohol. I didn't mean to, he slurred, stumbling slightly. I needed it. Emily didn't flinch. We know, Dad, but it's too late. You've crossed the line. We've called the lawyer. The inheritance is being protected, and you need help, professional help, not another bottle. He looked around, realization slowly dawning, and for a brief second I saw him my father, not the addict. And then he looked away, ashamed, and muttered, I don't know if I can fix this. That's on you, I said, voice firm. We've done our part. Now it's your choice. Get help, or stay out of our lives until you do. For the first time in years, he didn't argue. He didn't yell. He just nodded, quietly, and laughed. And for the first time that day, the house felt like I was again empty, yes, but free from chaos. The next morning, the first rays of sun cut through the dusty living room like they were trying to burn away the tension. Emily, Mark, and I sat around the kitchen table with a stack of receipts, pawn shop paperwork, and photos of the missing items. It was surreal. This was our mother's life reduced to paper and evidence. I can't believe he actually did this, Emily muttered, flipping through a receipt from some sketchy pawn shop downtown. I mean, I knew he drank, but selling Mom's things, that's just, I don't even have words. Mark sighed, rubbing his temples. We need to decide what comes next. Lawyer said we can reclaim some of the items if we prove they were sold without consent, and if he resists, we can go to court. I nodded, thinking of the emotional toll more than the money. It's not just the stuff, it's the betrayal. We've lost trust. How do you even rebuild that? Emily stared at me, voice trembling. Maybe we don't. Maybe this is the line. We protect Mom's memory, and we protect ourselves. Dad's going to have to deal with the consequences of his actions. By mid-morning, we decided to contact the lawyer and schedule a meeting. As we were making calls, a knock sounded at the door. My stomach sank. It had to be Dad. He stood there, unsteady but sober enough to speak. I went to a counsellor, he said quietly, eyes avoiding us. I want to make things right. I don't know if I can, but I want to try. I felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief because maybe there was hope for him. Anger because this came after months of deceit, lies, and betrayal. Emily spoke first. We're listening, but you have to understand you can't just walk back into our lives. There's legal stuff, restitution, and trust to rebuild. It won't be easy. Mark added, and you need to be honest. No more hiding, no more drinking, no more pawning stuff. If you mess up again, there's no going back. Dad nodded sullenly. I know. I've hit rock bottom, and I see that now. I am sorry. Not just for what I did, but for the years I let my control me. I want help. We set up a plan. He'd enter a rehab program, and we'd legally secure the remaining inheritance so nothing else could be taken. A small victory, but meaningful. It wasn't the same as having Mom back, but at least we were protecting her memory. Over the next few weeks, the lawyer worked with us to recover some of the items from the pawn shops. A few pieces were lost forever, but several rings and watches were returned. Each recovered item felt like reclaiming a piece of our family's past, a small step toward closure. The most important part, though, wasn't the jeweler. It was the boundaries we set with Dad. For the first time in years, we weren't just enabling his. We were protecting ourselves, our memories, and our future. By the time we finished moving into the new apartment, there was still tension, but it was tempered with cautious hope. Dad was in rehab, and though the road ahead would be long, at least we had some control over what used to feel completely out of our hands. Weeks passed, and the apartment slowly started to feel like home. Boxes were unpacked, photos hung on walls, and the faint smell of Mom's old furniture lingered in the air. But the tension from moving day hadn't disappeared, it had just shifted. Now, it was a quiet, simmering awareness that our family was broken, and some cracks might never fully heal. Dad called almost every day from rehab. His voice sounded weaker, more vulnerable, but there was a sincerity I hadn't heard in years. I'm doing the sessions, he'd say. I'm trying. I don't want to lose you kids, I've already lost too much. Emily sometimes answered, sometimes didn't. Mark mostly stayed silent during calls, but I made it a point to speak with him. We didn't forgive Dad overnight, and we weren't going to pretend everything was okay. That at least we were hearing him admit fault. That counted for something. One evening, he asked to video chat. I reluctantly agreed. On the screen, his eyes were red, his hand shaky, but he looked honest. I know saying sorry isn't enough, he said. I've hurt you all, Emily. Mark, you too. I want to try to earn back a little trust. If that's even possible. Emily's face softened a bit. We'll see, she said, her voice small. Right now, we're taking it day by day, actions, not words. Mark added, and you better not slip up. One mistake, and it's done. No more chances. Dad nodded. I get it, and I don't expect anything overnight. Just let me prove I can do this. The conversation lingered in my mind long after it ended. Part of me wanted to forgive him, to believe he could change. With another part that had spent months feeling betrayed and robbed was still raw. Around that time, we started visiting the lawyer's office to finalise the paperwork securing the inheritance. Walking through those steps felt like reclaiming some dignity. Each form signed, each legal boundary put in place, was like drawing a line in the sand. This is ours, you can't touch it again. Dad called after one of those meetings. I heard from the lawyer. Everything's being protected, he said. I'm relieved for you kids. I'm sorry it got to this point. I swallowed hard. Dad, the items can be replaced, but the trust, that takes time. And honestly, we don't know if it'll ever fully come back. I know, he whispered. But I'll spend the rest of my life trying if it means I don't lose you all completely. The truth was, none of us knew what the future held. There were no guarantees. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Not for perfect family dinners all after without tension, but for survival. For boundaries. For the possibility of a father who might come back from the edge. By the end of that week, I realised something crucial. The inheritance wasn't just jewellery or money. It was the test of our strength, the measure of our resolve, and a reminder that protecting our family meant sometimes standing firm even against the person you love most. We weren't healed, but we were beginning to rebuild. Months later, the apartment finally felt like home. The boxes were unpacked, walls decorated with photos of Mom, and the scent of fresh paint mixed with the faint aroma of old wooden furniture she loved. Moving day had become a memory, one painful, raw, but oddly empowering. Dad had been in rehab for 3 months. Calls were regular, structured, and for the first time, sober. He shared his progress cautiously, never overstating it, never making excuses. I went to my first group session today, he said one evening over video chat. It was hard, but I stayed, didn't touch a drop. I want to keep it that way. Emily's voice softened. We're proud of you for trying, Dad, but remember, it's a long road. We won't forget the past, but we'll see how you handle the future. Mark, always the quiet one, added, actions matter more than words, keep proving you. During one of those video calls, Dad surprised us. He'd somehow tracked down a few of Mom's pieces that had been sold, and he returned them. A delicate necklace, her favourite earrings, and a small brooch she'd worn every Christmas. He sent them with a note. I can't undo the past, but I want to make what I can right. Please forgive me someday. Emily cried when she opened the package. I felt a mix of relief and lingering anger. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. Mark held up the necklace and said quietly, it's still Mom's, not just some object, but it's proof you can do better, Dad, if you really want to. Dad's progress wasn't perfect. There were tough days. Phone calls when he almost slipped, confessions about cravings that scared us all. But the difference now was honesty. He was admitting his flaws, not hiding them. That, more than anything, mattered. We began slowly rebuilding family rituals. We didn't rush dinners or celebrations. We didn't pretend everything was okay. But we started having coffee on weekends, checking in about our days, sharing small victories. Dad never overstepped boundaries. He respected them. And we, in turn, learned to separate the addiction from the person we once loved unconditionally. I realised something important. Moving day hadn't just been about boxes and furniture. It had been a reckoning. A test of resilience, of patience, and of the limits of love. We had faced betrayal head-on and survived it. And in doing so, we'd laid the foundation for a fragile, but genuine reconciliation. One evening, as we sat around the apartment, Emily looked at me and whispered, we're okay, you know, not perfect, but okay. I nodded, thinking about Mom, about Dad, about everything lost and reclaimed. Yeah, I said quietly. We're okay, and maybe, just maybe, we can start again, one day at a time. The house was full again, not just with furniture and boxes, but with cautious hope, with accountability, and with the understanding that family, broken as it might be, could still endure. Moving day had been our darkest moment. But it also marked the beginning of something new, a chance to reclaim what was ours, protect what mattered, and face the future without fear.